Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and it's the September garden tour. And it's partly about late season colour, but also we've made a few mistakes and it might help you and to avoid making them, so we'll go into that. The Middlesized Garden is a big fat L. It's about 100 feet long and 80 feet wide at its widest, and 40 feet wide near the house. It's in southeast England. It's quite a mild, temperate climate and quite close to USA hardiness zone 9. But we have had really quite a hot summer, and in the last month we've had the hottest bank holiday on record, and we've also had one or two very severe storms, so the garden's had to put up with that. But to show you what has worked in the garden, and then we'll go into where we made a few mistakes which might help you. The first mistake I think we made was of communication. Like many people, we look after the garden ourselves, but we do get some paid help if we need something that needs particular equipment or particular expertise. But of course this means that we're working with different people quite often. Now there's a beautiful Kiftsgate rose that's grown over the wall from our neighbours, and it really is lovely and it smells lovely, but it has grown a very long way, so we all agreed that it needed to be cut back. The pergola that it covered has got lots of other beautiful climbers and it was choking them. So we had a conversation about cutting the Kiftsgate back, and at one point the person who did it asked my husband, "Do you want it all gone?" And thinking he meant the Kiftsgate rose, my husband said yes. Then, of course, we turned round, and in fact, he thought we'd meant all the climbers. So the pergola was completely stripped of its climbers right down to the ground. Now, at first I thought this was a disaster, but everyone pointed out that it had revealed a really beautiful wall. And moreover, the pergola itself was rotten at the top and really needed some repair. In fact, because the wall is lovely, we decided to take the pergola down completely, and now we've just got an open space there, which of course, as any gardener knows, is an opportunity. But I discovered from fellow gardeners that actually these sort of problems are quite common, and particularly if you ask somebody who you don't really know to deadhead your roses, absolutely anything can happen from removing the entire rose bush. It is our responsibility as gardeners to explain what we want properly, because we've got an idea of what we want in our heads, but it's very difficult for someone else to visualize it. And if you've got anything like language difficulties or anything like that, or you're dealing with people who aren't necessarily expert gardeners but know how to use chainsaws, for example, then it's so easy for mistakes to be made. Now, the other mistake I think I've made is I think we've overcrowded this bed. The orange dahlias look fantastic, and everyone who comes in says, "Gosh, the garden's looking amazing, those orange dahlias are just gorgeous." But I think that I've probably got to take them out, or at least take half of them out over the autumn, because they're just not letting anything else grow. It's a bit of a risk taking out what appears to be the best part of your border, but I really think that I can make the other things grow better if I do, so fingers crossed. This month I went to talk to dahlia expert Stephen Edney, and there's a link to that video in the description below, and it's all about how to grow dahlias. And I asked him which plants grow best with dahlias, and he really likes grasses as well as tropical plants. He loves to have resinus and cannas and things with dahlias because They're very tropical plants, but he also likes the delicacy of grasses, and I was really pleased to see that I have actually planted a dahlia Babylon bronze with a feathergrass, a Stipa tenuissima. However, this Stipa tenuissima is getting very floppy, so I asked him what to do about that, and he says that he grows his Stipa tenuissima every year from seed, because once they've been in the ground for 2 or 3 years, they do flop over and seem to cover the ground, and they don't really stand up as much as you would like them to. At the back of the garden, the planting has got very scrappy in late season because it's wonderful for self-seeders in the spring and early summer. But once they've gone over, the other plants don't seem to like this area so much. There's a few that do well, Phlomis, Echinops, Nymphophia, but there's huge patches, and this means because they're empty, the bindweed really takes over. Japanese anemones do very well further along on the other border in this side of the garden. So I hoped that Japanese anemones might do well in this bed too, and I planted a few pieces of roots that a friend gave me, but they haven't taken, and I think I've read somewhere that Japanese anemones, although they're quite thuggish once they are established, do take a while to establish. So I'm going to have another go. I'm going to buy some potted plants and maybe put about 5 of them in and keep them watered and hope that that does work. And then I'm going to look up plants for dry shade, because right plant, right place is really the key to making a border work, and this one really hasn't in the late summer. It's a good time of year to deadhead as well. I've been cutting back these Cecile Brunner roses, and I've done them all with shears. Last year I did try doing some of them by hand with secateurs and then some with shears, and the side that I did with shears took longer to come back, but it did come back and it was just as floriferous. And so just to save time, I've decided to do it all with shears this year. We've also trimmed the lavender. Now, I've got a video about cutting back English lavender. And although you're always told to not cut back to the brown wood, it is essential to cut lavender back quite hard if you want a neat sculptured shape. Lavender doesn't regrow from old wood, but if you look down in the wood, you will see that there are buds already quite a long way down, so you can cut back hard. I've always done this with secateurs in the past, but this year we've decided to save time and try doing it with a strimmer. My husband did it with quite a heavy strimmer along the sides where the branches are really quite thick, and also where I don't mind if it doesn't regrow back. And then he used a lighter strimmer to take all the growth off the top, and then went back to a heavier strimmer just for a final haircut. We've trimmed it back as far as we dare, and there is quite a lot of brown showing, but in the next couple of months we'll see if the regrowth comes back and whether we can save lots of time in the future by pruning our lavender with a strimmer. We're just coming to the end of the heat wave, so perhaps next month the garden will be looking absolutely flattened, or it may have the most gorgeous autumn colour. So I hope you'll join us, and please hit like if you've enjoyed this, because then I know you like more garden tours. And if you want tips, ideas and inspiration for your middle-sized garden, then do subscribe, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.